my buddy said he did last night when the open announcement happened, whatever it is, right? And you decide, I need to get prepared in every single way possible, right? You're amped up, you're excited, and you decide you're gonna go pick up a pre-workout for the first time before the CrossFit Open, and you're gonna take it before the CrossFit Open. I kid you not, I seen a kid do this at a gym a couple of years ago. He picked up InnoExplode for the first time. He took 2 scoops, and he was throwing up the entire Open. Welcome to Consistency Breeds Growth Radio. I am your host, Justin Romare. Our incredible guest and myself talk about the cutting-edge science and consistency necessary to reach your weight loss, wellness, and performance goals. If you have nutrition goals, we have customized nutrition programs and coaches that tell you how much, when, and what to eat for every single meal. And the best part? You don't need to calculate macros in an app. Ditch the calculators. Want to learn more about our intrinsic diet? Let one of our coaches know you listen to this podcast to get 10% off. Do you own a gym or attend a gym that wants to make some money and throw a top-notch nutrition challenge with a team of certified nutrition coaches? Our team will guide your members through a nutrition challenge customized for your gym. And you'll make money for each member who signs up. If you want more information about working with us one-on-one or in a gym setting, head over to consistencybreedsgrowth.com or email us at consistencybreedsgrowth@gmail.com. We will also put links in the show notes. Enjoy the podcast. What's up, team? We're back with another episode of CBG Radio. Have you joined our group Facebook page yet? Let me tell you why if you haven't. We do monthly free nutrition challenges on there. So they're focused around a specific theme. So for March, we're doing all about water. You can get your own free customized water intake from one of our coaches. We're going to figure that out for you. You're going to be on the leaderboard with everyone else in our group. So why not join? There are also prizes at the end, potentially for you to work with one of our one-on-one coaches, right? So if you're not on a Facebook group page, this is how you can join. Just head over to www.facebook.com/groups/CBG Nutrition Tribe. Okay? Head over there. It's free. Join our Facebook group. It's a lot of fun. We give a lot of tips. And it's a great way to stay up with your nutrition, have some accountability, and be a part of a group. So we hope to see you in there. Today, we're going to talk about 5 ways to nail your nutrition for the CrossFit Open. And I see so many mistakes that people make. Athletes and people that are just new to the Open, maybe it's their first year. There are so many different things that you can mess up here. Okay? So I'm going to go through 5 tips and things that I see most common and some things that you could potentially improve for this Open and potentially think about for next year's Open, etc. Right? So the first tip that I can give you is to not make any drastic changes with your nutrition. Oh my gosh. I see this all the time with people, advanced high-level athletes, all the way down to people who are finally, that are just getting involved with CrossFit and it's their first Open. Okay. They somehow decide that 3 weeks before the Open, they're going to switch to a vegan diet, right? They haven't eaten vegan their whole life. They're going to just eliminate meat completely from their diet, not know what they're doing, right? Not know the micronutrients that they're potentially missing out on, how to supplement them in since they're switching to a vegan diet, what those vitamins do in terms of affecting performance, overall health, and wellness. This is a huge, huge mistake. You don't want to make any drastic changes in your diet. Really, you don't want to make any drastic changes like that in your diet without really working with someone that is a vegan, or whether you've done extensive research on it. For any diet, it's veganism or keto or whatever you decide that you want to do. But you definitely don't want to do it as a way to enhance performance in a CrossFit Open, right? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Trust me, you switching to a different diet than you're doing now is not going to get you from, getting to quarterfinals or semifinals, right? That one little change that you're making, but it could definitely harm your performance in a lot of different ways, especially if you don't know what you're doing, okay? And it's not just a diet switch. It's any new supplements. Like, okay, so you're amped up. You're about to get ready for the Open. You're getting out your reps. You got it scheduled. I'm going to do this in an EMOM structure. I'm shooting for this many reps, so this is what I need to do to beat this score that, my buddy said he did last night when the Open announcement happened. Whatever it is, right? And you decide, I need to get prepared in every single way possible, right? You're amped up. You're excited. And you decide you're going to go pick up a pre-workout for the first time before the CrossFit Open. You're going to take it before the CrossFit Open. I kid you not, I seen a kid do this at a gym a couple of years ago. He picked up InnoExplode for the first time. He took 2 scoops, and he was throwing up the entire Open. So, look, you can't make drastic changes like this. And this goes for everything. Simple things like don't start drinking coffee the day of the Open. Don't start eating a bunch of foods you never ate before for the... Don't start taking Beat-Elite to increase, oxygenated blood and red blood cells in your body because you read about it the night before that's what, these top level CrossFit athletes take before they're Open. Like, look, continue to do what it is that you're doing. Focus on the basics. There are levels to this game. I'll go over this a little bit more as to what I mean by there are levels to this game. But look, you don't want to change your nutrition drastically and start taking new supplements and all this other stuff the day of the Open, or changing your food composition multiple weeks before the Open. It's just not a good idea. It's not going to give you what you think it's going to give you, regardless of how much you've read about it, right? And our coaches, even under our guidance, wouldn't try to make drastic changes to your nutrition prior to the Open if your goal is overall performance and just competing at your absolute best, right? And optimally. So, look, this is the first tip. This is the number one thing. Look, I can give you all the tips in the world about how to improve your performance the day of and come back and be able to do a repeat and what you need to do to fuel in between and all that. We can get into all that. But one thing you can't do is you can't make drastic changes to your nutrition the day of and then multiple weeks out with changing food composition and amounts of food and all this stuff. It's not going to help you out. It's really not going to help you out. The next thing is nutrient timing. So this has been something that was really popularized 10 or 15 years ago. The window of gains, the opportunity to grow muscle mass versus growing or generating fat or body fat. If you have a certain amount of calories, protein and carbohydrate combination, you're able to stimulate muscle growth post-workout as opposed to increasing body fat. This is all true to a certain degree. It's not as significant as we once thought it was. But for performance athletes, nutrient timing is still something that's extremely important for a variety of reasons. The first is based on recovery, okay? We need to be able to recover from our workouts, especially in the Open, especially if you're going to be repeating multiple workouts. And number two, it's really about digestibility and making sure that you're putting yourself in a situation where you don't have gastrointestinal discomfort during an Open workout. You don't want to be, have stomach aches during the middle of an Open workout. So nutrient timing also becomes important there, right? So there's a multifaceted approach when it comes to nutrient timing for athletes. So I can go over that a little bit. Now, we have protein, we have carbs, and we have fat, right? Protein is basically what our muscles are made up of. It's amino acids built together, generating, tertiary and quaternary structures of proteins that eventually build up muscle mass, right? And last week, I believe in a podcast, we talked about cytokines and they're released, and then muscle repair comes in, and it's able to generate new muscle tissue. Protein is the main building block there to be able to do that. There's not enough protein available. This repairing muscle damage is extremely, extremely difficult, right? So protein overall, that's what its purpose is. In an Open workout, whenever, it's to prevent muscle damage, sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass, especially as you're doing these high intense workouts. You're going to want to make sure that you're fueling yourself properly with enough protein. And from a timing strategy, it's not really too necessary to have all the protein at one specific time or all this. Look, you just want to sort of have protein, throughout the day. You want to be able to whether it's 4 meals or 6 meals, whatever your daily protein goal is, you want to be able to split it up evenly throughout the day. And you want to make sure that you're having a protein shake after your open workout is over, and days leading up to the open, after your workouts, what you're doing with your training. You want to make sure you have a protein shake. I'm sure most of you are already doing this. A fast-acting whey protein is really good. This has a really great amino acid profile. It's really fast digesting, which is good, especially when taking in with carbohydrates, which we can talk about a little bit as well. But in terms of finishing up with protein, there's a whey protein, which is really good. Likely a concentrate or isolate is good enough. You don't need anything crazy or too expensive, and that'll work great for you. Right now, if you're sensitive to milk proteins, because whey is a milk protein, you can think about some alternatives. There are egg protein, as well as there are some vegan alternatives. The best one being a pea-based protein. So if you're going to go to plant-based protein because you're sensitive to whey, you're going to want to think about a pea-based protein, not a rice or not a collagen protein or a casein protein, which is a slower digestion in milk protein. You're going to want to think about possibly a pea protein, egg protein, something that has a good absorption profile and amino acid profile in general, right? So in terms of protein nutrient timing, spread it evenly throughout the day based on the number of meals you have, and make sure you have that post-workout shake that has a whey protein. Make sure you're able to have protein there in the bloodstream to repair muscle damage, essentially from the open workout and the other intense sessions that you're doing throughout the week. Now, I typically always have my athletes double and sometimes triple their carbohydrate consumption in that same shake, or intra-workout and finishing up that at the end. So let's take, for example, you have 20 grams of protein post-workout, 20 to 30 grams of protein post-workout. This is, for females might be somewhere around 40 to 60 grams of carbohydrate post-workout, intra and post. So you can have maybe 20 to 30 intra. It's not really possible during the open. You can't just take a swallow of Gatorade in between reps, unless somehow, there are different structures of workouts in a CrossFit Open where there's a Metcon, and then after that you're doing a lifting. It's a good idea to think about getting in some carbs in between there and in between lifts and attempts that you're making. I would highly recommend that. But other than that, you're going to be drinking this sort of as a post-workout shake, right? And some of the carbohydrates you likely want to think about that are, they have higher absorption rates and are good for fueling performance in general, rather than the brain and other sources of the body, is glucose, sucrose, and maltodextrin. So you can find this in Gatorade. There's dextrose powders that are available. Things like fructose, which is the common sugar found in fruit, for example, is not as optimal as some of the other sources that I mentioned. So you're going to want to think about glucose, sucrose, and dextrin, dextrose or maltodextrin powders. Very common, fairly cheap to come by, and incorporate that as your post-workout shake, right? And it's this combination, it's been shown in several studies, combination of protein and carbohydrate that actually helps stimulate muscle growth, or at least help with muscle repair at the very least, right? So this is good for recovery. Another reason carbohydrates are typically good for recovery is because they replenish glycogen. And glycogen is basically carbohydrate stored in our muscle, right? So this is the first sort of fuel source our body goes to when we're doing some of these high intense workouts. And it's basically a multi-branched polysaccharide of glucose. And it serves as the energy storage mechanism for a lot of different things, including animals and bacteria, including humans, which is why it's relevant here, right? So to replenish that glycogen, you need adequate amounts of carbohydrate, right? So that's typically why carbohydrates are also important post-workout, right? So this is what I would be thinking about here in terms of timing. It would also be good, I have some athletes take in a tablespoon or two of honey pre-workout, so 30 minutes before. I'll get into some other supplementation tactics as well that you could possibly implement. You're going to want to implement these prior to the open. Remember my point 1 here, don't incorporate some other crap that you've never taken before and you decide you're going to incorporate it now. You want to make sure you incorporate this before the open, not the day of the open for the first time. And this is, basically the summary of carbohydrate, right? You want to try to get that post-workout shake, and you want to try to get carbohydrates around that workout time, right? So like if you're going to do the open at 6, Friday Night Lights, however it's set up this year, right? You're going to want to try to have some carbohydrates around 3:30, okay? You're going to want to have carbohydrates post-workout, possibly some pre-workout carbs, which I'll get into in a second when it comes to supplementation. And then you're going to want to have those post-workout carbs, and then also a dinner meal or nighttime meal high in carbohydrate as well. All right. So this basically covers carbohydrates, and then less carbohydrates, basically distributed. I don't know what everyone's macros are, right? But distributed away from that workout time. So in the morning, maybe a little bit less carbohydrates than it is that you around that workout time. All right. Very simple. And that's what I would typically have the majority of my athletes doing for the open. Okay. Fat, the last macronutrient. So fat has, it helps repair a lot of tissue in the body. It's, it's great for regulating hormone levels. Very important. We need to make sure we have enough fat in general, but it's not really necessary to have at the workout time or near the workout time, right? And it could even be detrimental to your performance if you have it during the workout time, because it digests and absorbs very slowly. And when combined with other things that digest fast, right, or faster, it could slow the digestion and absorption of those foods. So like if you put peanut butter in your post-workout shake, you're going to slow the digestion of the whey protein, that's a fast-acting protein, or some of those simple carbohydrates such as the glucose, sucrose, maltodextrin that I was talking about a little bit ago, right? So you're going to want to avoid fat around the workout time, okay? So that 3:30 meal we're talking about should have almost no fat in it. You can pack in a little fat at night, and that dinner meal after the open's all said and done, you can have a little fat there. Especially if you have a training session the next day, or you're going to go for the open again the next day. But in the morning, away from that workout time, if you're going to do the open at 6 p.m., you're going to want fat in the morning, like for breakfast. You could do an avocado egg sandwich where you cook the eggs in olive oil, and then you also have avocado on a sandwich. Maybe you have a side of nuts and seeds, for example. Maybe even lunchtime you have some fat, right? Some peanut butter, almond butter, right? Some other sources of fat as well. Okay. So, and then as you get closer to that 6 p.m. workout time, if you're doing like a Friday Night Lights or whatever it is, less fat to no fat at 3:30 or 3 o'clock, whenever that pre-workout meal is, let's call it. Okay. So that covers the timing, I would say, except for fiber. Fiber, soluble or insoluble, both forms of fiber could really disrupt the gut. And this is what happens. So when you're working out, right, your body's primarily focused on rushing blood to muscle tissue, working muscle tissue, right? That's what you want. You want oxygenated blood going to the muscle tissue so that, it could, provide work to all the systems to make sure that you're continuing to move, right? And then that blood, deoxygenated blood gets flushed out and more blood needs to come in. So blood is constantly circulating to muscle tissue, okay? When you have food in your stomach, fiber and other slower digesting foods like fat, right? Your body's trying to process the food in the stomach also, and it's taking blood that could be alternatively going to muscle tissue, and it's trying to also pump it towards the stomach to help with digestion. Okay, and when that's happening, one, it's going to give you an upset stomach for sure. And then two, it's also taking blood away from, working muscle tissue, what's needed, right? So this is why you want to try to avoid slower digesting foods, fiber, fat, pre-workout, right? So this is nutrient timing. These are some things that you could think about for the CrossFit Open. Implement these things before the open. Don't do them the day of the open. I told you multiple times at this rate, don't make this mistake. So that covers number 1 and 2, 5 total tips. So number 1 was don't make any drastic changes. Number 2, nutrient timing of protein, carbs, fat, how to establish a post-workout protein and carb shake, what carbohydrate sources to have, what protein sources to have, and stay away from fat during that workout window. Number 3, okay, is supplementation. And our first supplement, number 3, is going to be caffeine. All right. Again, if you don't drink coffee or have caffeine in the form of tablets, in the form of caffeine gummy bears, in the form of caffeine gum, don't start taking caffeine or drinking coffee the day of the Open. Don't do it. Don't start putting butter in your coffee today. Just don't do anything crazy. All right. But caffeine has a lot of benefits, and if you are a caffeine drinker, an experienced caffeine drinker, it's good to sort of implement caffeine about 90 minutes before workout. So caffeine is rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream. It peaks after about 90 minutes, and it has a lot of different performance benefits. So first thing it does is it activates the nervous system, right, which can improve focus and also improve energy for most individuals. I'll give a little caveat in a second. But it also affects the hormone epinephrine, which is a hormone responsible for our fight or flight mechanism, which can help improve performance, right? Caffeine may also impact the motor cortex, which is a part of the brain that signals muscle activation. So it can become critical there. And it's been shown to spare glycogen. Remember that carbohydrate source we talked about that's stored in the muscle, that glycogen, it can spare glycogen. Right? So it can cause major increases in performance for endurance athletes. It has been shown time and time again in the scientific literature that it does help performance athletes, which, as we know, most of the workouts we do, CrossFit is still an endurance sport. It's not a weightlifting sport. It's not a gymnastics sport. It's an endurance sport. At the end of the day, the top elite level performers are the best endurance athletes, right? It's fact. And it can help with endurance. Caffeine can seriously help endurance athletes, and it has been shown in multiple studies that it helps with endurance athletes. And it seems to also provide a benefit for athletes that train in high intensity. That's typically the demographic and the stylistic types of workouts that we experience in the Open, right? It seems to be more of a benefit to high intense workout for trained athletes rather than untrained athletes. That mechanism is still not understood. If I ever do figure that out or dig into the literature again, figure that out, definitely let you guys know. But it seems to be that it helps high intensity athletes a little bit more than untrained athletes for high intensity level workouts. Okay. And research on strength is still up in the air. It's a little bit more difficult to do those studies, but there are some studies that show it helps with higher repetition strength work, 5 rep to 15 rep max type of work. So all in all, it could be very beneficial. Okay. The only thing is basically there's a genetic component that we have, a specific genotype that defines whether we are a slow or fast metabolizer of caffeine. And you can determine this through a GenoPal Report DNA kit that we provide a lot of our athletes as well as our clients that want to optimize health, wellness, performance, or weight loss, right? Very easy. Provide a DNA sample for saliva. You can return it and you can get back a lot of information. One of those things being whether you're a fast or slow metabolizer of caffeine. People that are fast metabolizers of caffeine will tend to get all these benefits. They get the focus, they get the energy, they get the endurance benefits, they get all these things, right? Which is awesome. Now, the slow metabolizers of caffeine could potentially experience the opposite effects of this, or at least negligible effects in terms of endurance, performance, focus, and energy. They feel more jittery when they have caffeine. They feel all over the place. They don't feel like they can target and specify on the task. They may also have trouble sleeping because of the caffeine, because they're such a slow metabolizer, right? So this is the only one thing. So this is another reason why you want to figure out, have small doses of caffeine prior to the Open, not the day of, because it may not actually benefit you in the way that I'm describing, right? If you're a slow metabolizer, okay? Number 4, and this is related to a couple of other supplements that are beneficial for performance athletes, and how to incorporate them. So number 4 is sort of it's part of the post-workout shake that I was already describing, but a little bit more information, right? So one of those supplements is creatine. So I was on a chat the other day with someone and talk about, is creatine safe? Look, there have been multiple studies that show that people that overload creatine times 5 the amount, 5 tablespoons of creatine, it's an absurd amount of creatine, had no kidney damage at all. I mean, there was no, with their blood work, everything was fine as long as their water intake was sufficient. Okay, so there's no reason to be afraid of creatine. I think this came out of the bodybuilding era as something that, look, creatine's in fish, guys. So there's nothing wrong with creatine. And this does, alternatively from that of caffeine, does help with strength work significantly. It's been shown in so many different studies. It's the most proven supplement on the market, right, to help with this, right? So, if you're going to start loading creatine, you want to do that a couple weeks before the open. You don't want to do it during the open or right in the middle of the open or the day of the open, but you want to include it. It regenerates ATP from ADP, which is, it's the first energy source our body goes to. It pulls a phosphate off. The breaking of that bond supplies energy, and that's what this is all about, right? Is what's our metabolic efficiency like in terms of providing energy for the workout task that we're trying to complete, and how fast can you do and keep up with the threshold of that energy, right? I mean, that's basically what the sport of CrossFit is, right? With skill and some other things included, but I mean, that's what we're doing here. So creatine's super important, and I'll have athletes put that right into their post-workout shake. Make sure they get that in, and you can also, if you're drinking Gatorade as that glucose as well as or sucrose or maltodextrin form that you're trying to get in those post-workout carbohydrates, then you probably don't need to worry about this as much. But I always have my athletes making sure they're getting in enough potassium and sodium. Sodium is in salt, and then potassium is actually a salt as well, but it's the form of new salt, NU-SALT, and I have them include a pinch of each of these into their workout shakes if they're not already salting their foods. Sodium acts across an action potential. It goes into and out of cell, produces an action potential, which is what helps our muscles fire, right? So not being hyponatremic, and sodium and potassium can be detrimental to performance. So this is something good to also add in your post-workout shake to essentially balance out electrolyte levels. I mean, this is what this is, right? They're electrolytes. And then I'll also have some athletes take in a minimal amount of carbohydrates, 30 to 40 grams of carbohydrates in the form of a liquid pouch or honey pre-workout, 45 minutes before the workout, just to make sure we top off those glycogen levels that I've been talking about. All right, so that ends sort of the supplements, tip number 4. Tip number 5 is our last one in terms of how to nail down your nutrition for the CrossFit Open, is stop eating at a caloric deficit. Just quit. Don't do it. Quit it. Eating at a caloric deficit, right, less calories than your body burns, which means you'll be losing weight. That's how you know you're at a caloric deficit, is only going to set you up for burnout during a CrossFit Open. And we know what happens when we set ourselves up for burnout. We've all been there mentally and physically. It could leave you injured, right? Which is one of the main reasons I see top-level athletes not make it to where they want, is because they legitimately overreach for too long. They set themselves up for burnout and they get injured, okay? This is super important. Don't be at a caloric deficit. Be at your maintenance level calories. Maintain your body weight. Give your body the fuel it needs to perform optimally. This is extremely important. Say tip 1 and 5 are definitely the most important. Don't do anything you haven't been doing, especially on the day of CrossFit Open, and don't make drastic changes to your food composition leading up to the Open. And number 5, don't eat at a caloric deficit. Don't try to lose weight during the middle of the Open. All right, if you're just doing the Open for fun, your primary goal is for weight loss, then yeah, absolutely. Right? Do what you have to do, right? Continue at a caloric deficit, lose your weight, awesome. Those goals are awesome. But if your goal is performance and competing and being optimal in a sport and getting the best open score, getting the quarterfinals or semifinals or the CrossFit Games, you can't eat at a caloric deficit. It's too late for that. You missed the opportunity for that. You can't do that now. All right. Very important. Last thing is, and I'll give some general macro guidelines because I know people are like, oh man, I don't have macros. Look, I'll give you some macro guidelines. Just general. Look, this is not customized nutrition. If you're looking for a customized approach, head over to our website. Happy to work with anyone that needs help during the Open to fuel for their performance. Or if you're looking for overall weight loss, body fat loss, or body recomposition, happy to have one of our coaches work with you. But these will be general guidelines. But before I get into that, I just want to say that there are levels to this game. Okay? All of this stuff that I just talked about means absolutely nothing. The sodium and potassium in your shakes, the replenishing of the glycogen, the protein shakes, the nutrient timing, all this stuff, if you're not hitting the prerequisites to perform well. So if you're not training 4 to 5 days a week, properly deloading, do you actually want to compete and do really well in the Open? If you're not getting to the gym enough times, or if you are getting to the gym enough times, you're overtraining, nothing's gonna save you from that, right? Nothing. Not any of these protocols that I just mentioned. The next thing is sleep. Like if you're not sleeping 8+ hours a night, and for Saxon and Sam, Saxon has a kid on the way. Sam already had his baby. They're still sleeping 8+. Sam and Saxon last year was sleeping 9+ before the games. So look, this is what you need to be able to support your recovery. This is what you need. You need 8+, 9+ is ideal, right? Hydration. Hydration is extremely important. If you're not focused on getting half your body weight in ounces or close to that, right? You don't need to go overboard because you don't want to just dump out a bunch of electrolytes that your body also needs. But half your body weight in ounces approximately, look, all this stuff doesn't mean anything. The nutrient timing and the caffeine and the creatine and all that, you don't even need to worry about that. Like, get the low-hanging fruit first, right? Go ahead and start making sure you're monitoring your water intake. It's very important, right? Third is alcohol, right? You want to be a great athlete. You want to perform optimally, but then you're doing the workout Saturday morning at the gym, but you went out Friday night and had a beer or 2 or 5 or whatever. None of this matters if you're doing that. None of it matters. All the tips I gave, you might as well just delete this podcast from your memory. If you're drinking right before the day of the Open or leading up to the Open, I mean, look, you should have not been drinking since January. If your goal is really to be, and all the questionnaires I send out to like the really elite level performance athletes I work with, like people that really want this stuff, like I sent Sam Quant 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago when I started working with them. How many days do you drink alcohol on the questionnaire form? Just said never. Just straight up said never on it. That's Saxon too. Never. Never. Like, I mean, it's just detrimental to performance. And others like, other people that I work with that are really elite level, they only have it during the off season when they're not competing. All right, but this is the CrossFit Open. I mean, if this is what you want to perform well. Now, if you care about it, but you kind of don't care about it that much, hey, I'm just telling you, this is the way that it goes. And this is what the second fittest man in the world, fittest dad in the world, and Saxon, the 9th fittest in 2019, this is what they report to me about what they do with what they drink, how much they sleep, they hydrate, all this stuff. They're doing all the low-hanging fruits already, and then I'm incorporating these things. This is what's helping them get the couple more reps. This was helping them, place 2nd versus 5th in a CrossFit Games workout. This stuff. But you're never going to get to the CrossFit Games if you're not doing this other stuff, or the semifinals or quarterfinals, whatever it is. It's an integral piece. Nutrition is an integral piece, and some of this other stuff for recovery needs to be done first, right? So in terms of macronutrients, look, I'll give some general guidelines for you guys. So I would say just try to target around 1 gram per pound of body weight for protein. So if you're 150 pounds, you're going to want to eat about 150 grams of protein, right? Rather you be a little bit under than over on the protein. It's really not any science supporting that you need more than your body weight in protein, unless you're going for body recomposition. But around 1 gram is fine, right? For carbs, this is going to vary for a lot of people, but I would say try to target about double your body weight. If you're serious, if you're a performance athlete and you're training once per day, 5-6 days a week, about 2 grams per pound of body. So if you're 150 pounds, you want to be about 300. Rather you be a little bit over than under on the carbs, honestly, right? And in fat, I would try to target somewhere around a half of your body weight in grams. So if you weigh 200 pounds, try to focus on get about 100 grams of fat. If you're 150 pounds, focus on about 75 grams of fat or so, right? This is for fueling for performance. This is not for weight loss, not for anything else. You know, things could change. You may like a little bit more carbs than fat. You could kind of play around with that a little bit. These are just general guidelines. Don't at me on this stuff, guys. Look, I've been a nutrition coach for a long time. I don't need anybody atting me for, hey, man, it's too low carbs, man. I eat this many carbs. Look, I'm just giving people, my audience here, some general guidelines. You've obviously experimented with yourself or with the coach you're working with a little bit more extensively for you to be on those carbs. If you know that your maintenance level, that you need to perform well. Look, I have Sam and Saxon both on almost 3 grams per pound of body weight. Same thing with Brooke Haas, 2.5 grams per pound of body. So it's going to be different for every single person. But those are my recommendations. Should get you through the Open. Like I said, don't implement these new macros I just gave you the day of the Open. Start tracking your macros. It's not really going to do much. It's always great to fuel your body properly and get more whole foods and, you know, stop eating junk food and all these other things that don't provide, you know, a good system to support performance, recovery, your immune system, all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with eating healthier going into the Open or the day of the Open. You just don't want to make those drastic changes, right? So these are some guidelines I have for the CrossFit Open. Hopefully some of these are actionable for you guys. You guys could think about implementing them. There might be some questions here, no problem. Just head over to our website, consistencybreedsgrowth.com. You could also email us at consistencybreedsgrowth@gmail.com. And I'm always on in the Instagram DMs. Slide in there. Let me know if you guys have questions. Happy to answer anything for free. Hop on a call for free. It doesn't matter. As you know, you guys listen to this podcast, subscribe, and get 10% off any of our nutrition coaching by listening. Just let us know when you talk to one of our coaches on the phone. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you guys. This is Justin signing out. Peace.
It's science.
Thank you for listening to the podcast today. We hope you enjoyed it. Keep tuning in every week for more incredible guests and ways to reach your max potential, both physically and mentally. Please subscribe on iTunes or your preferred podcast app and let us know if you like this episode.
Science.
Don't forget to check us out at consistencybreedsgrowth.com or on Instagram at CBG_online_sports for details on upcoming nutrition challenges or one-on-one coaching for weight loss, wellness, or performance. Also, feel free to join our free Facebook page at www.facebook.com/groups/CBG Nutrition Tribe.